Welcome to Factorio. My name is Nilas. This is the very last episode of this series, and I will use this not for building anything, but to give a base tour and explain some of the design choices that have been the overarching concept of this base, as well as some of the flaws and the strength and some of the learnings we've done from this base. So if you haven't watched the entire series, this is episode 100, so there's a lot of things to do. This is all played in version 0.17. I played right from the beginning. One of the first things that really came up as a challenge was the broken biter spawning that turned this into a death world rather early, but that actually turned out to be a rather interesting little challenge. So let's start this from somewhere. Let's start looking at it. We'll look at it from a map. So the whole base is here. This is not designed or intended as a mega base, but more likely it is a nice base that generates rockets just continuously. But it is very much, as you can see here, very much constrained. There have been lots of suggestions about why don't you just expand it? Why don't you just but that's not the option. The option is very clearly that this has a unique design that we've been following from the beginning to the end. And that's been sort of a hypothesis, and now we see that it works. You can see here, this is very much train-based, and every train comes in from this side, goes through this intersection, which is close to being the bottleneck. It isn't quite, but it almost is. I'm using the, by now, famous, I hope, Outpost train network or vanilla train network. That is a way to control trains, as you can see here, without me just spending anything. It's working really well. I've had some ups and downs, but in the end, I'm very happy with how it works. You can see here, we have loaded trains waiting. They're waiting here. Let's, before we dive into sort of explaining the train network, let's just explain the overall concept. So I set aside space in the beginning to make this, basically saying iron and steel up here, copper down here, stone bricks here. That would be constrained, uranium and coal. And then we go into the main bus. This is a main bus base, you can see here. And this has been iterated several times back and forth, depending on how you go. The first block is a hub or a mall, as some like to call it. This is my hub where everything is produced and I can draw items out. The next one is where we have the red and green signs. It doesn't take much space. And the way it's been built is it has been built sort of like very early game and then expanded with modules, beacons, so that it could keep up. We've had different iterations of the science, but this is the one we settled on. This is not the biggest science facility you could ever imagine. If we look at production stats, look at it on a 10-minute cycle, you can see here, it's really not that much here. 375. I'm quite happy with this, but obviously not mega base level. Never the intention. Then we have some other things that are very essential, both for the early game or early mid game, but also in the late game. It transitions really well. We have solar power and then added. The interesting thing is that solar and accumulators is actually exactly the same items we need to build laser turrets. So that comes in rather handy to bake there. Then moving on moving across. Then we have the first thing here is very, very crowded and probably too crowded. This is our oil facility that tries to do too many things. That I'm graciously going to acknowledge. We have plastic, but this plastic is just not enough. It's working now. This is really just squeezed here, but without having this dedicated location with the coal liquefaction coming in and supporting, then we won't be able to work. It won't be able to consider. These will produce one blue belt each based on trains coming in with coal. So that's working really well. Oh, right here, green circuits, yes. So basically this essence is we have science and stuff up here, and we have circuits and oil products down here. That's kind of how I'm doing it. There have been several iterations of this, but this is where I'm settled on. This generates 8 full belts of green circuits. It's just jogging along, very nice. Going out here, we have 8 belts of green. You can see the way that it's coming in here. Basically from the beginning, we have 8 lanes of copper plus 8 more lanes of copper, so 16 lanes of copper. Iron is, at the mid game, it's peaking out and using way more iron, but in the later game you need more copper, because the reason why you need so much iron is actually for the red and blue belts. And once you're done with belting, you don't need any more. Then it becomes very much the green circuits, the red circuits that really use up a lot of your ore, and also the low density structures. There's a massive amount of copper. Also here, just strict smelting, taking 8 lanes in, getting 8 lanes out. Of course, there will be some, this will not consume 8 lanes, because they are, the 20% productivity means that in order for it to get 8 lanes in, it's going to be less than 8 lanes, or 8 lanes out, and it'll be less than 8 lanes in. It works really well. I can get 8 lanes of red belts exactly in one of these city blocks, so that's going to be really handy. Likewise here, I have done something I think is actually rather cool. Basically, I take, in this case, 5 lanes in of iron. The thing is, it's very hard to balance iron and steel, because depending on where you are, sometimes you need more steel, sometimes you need more iron. But once the iron starts transitioning down, it's really cool to be able to automatically scale up the steel. So that's what I've done here. I basically take 1 lane here making iron, comes out, and then it splits going into the steel and moving in further. So obviously this is not going to be generating for full lanes here, but it will generate enough. This will be as productive as it can be. First of all, this lane here cannot support or cannot consume a full blue lane. So even if I did this, there would still be some surplus coming out. But this way is a self-balancing between steel and iron, works wonderfully. This might not even be 2 lanes, but it's getting close there. This actually be slightly more than 1 lane. And I have 3 of those, so that's what we get. We get 12 lanes of iron out, and I'm just merging these into 2 lanes of steel, because that's pretty much all I can do. Uranium processing, very simple. Moving on here, we have blue science and military science here. It's very simple, nothing fancy there. I can see something that has been disconnected. One of these must be, look at that. It's funny. There we go. Robot can deal with that. And here, the next one, this is kind of crowded, maybe a bit too crowded, but this is a yellow science and purple science. It works nicely. I am putting a buffer here where it's just continually grabs it, scales it up here. So that when I switch between military science, I have a buffer here to consume, and then the other one builds up a buffer. And then last, at the end of the line, we have our rocket facility. And this has also been scaled up gradually. This is now basically scaled up so that it fits with consuming 2 lanes of copper for the low density structure. 2 full lanes of copper is being consumed. And that's pretty much it, right? I mean, this one, you can see here, this is, the constraint is on, well, it has to be on one of these, right? Because it would always be, and it just happens to be on the rocket parts, the rocket fuel. Now let's look at blue science or blue circuits. Blue circuits and modules. Modules will be very consuming of red and blue, and that's going to be kind of an issue mid to late game. That you will have a very difficult time keeping up red circuits for this build, and if you start lacking in red circuits, then you start lacking in blue circuits and all that. But in the end, this one is generating, I don't know how close it is, but it's consuming 6 lanes of green circuits when it's fully operational. So that's pretty nice. And you can see here that everything is just flowing really well. The red circuits as well. So everything is worked on my city block concept. However, this is one of the key things that I feel I did wrong with this. I decided that it should be 6 lanes wide instead of my usual 4 lanes. The impact was that now no longer can one roboport. Do I have roboports here? Yeah, okay. I usually are able to make roboports, like 4 roboports, and that will fit exactly into a city block. That is unfortunately not necessary, so I've had to put way more roboports here, and that's not ideal. The way this base is powered is by having we first added some solar panels. I really like this pattern. It's nice and simple, it's compact, it's early game, and it looks kind of unique. So stamping these slabs down here, they're okay, but once you start really getting into, you will not be able to get into modular beacons with that. And therefore I decided to build some, well, I think the comment section decided that I should build some nuclear power, so we did that. And this is as much as I could squeeze in here, 10 nuclear power plants, 10 reactors. And if you haven't watched any of this, then you're like, hopefully you're like, oh, there's so awesome blueprints. Where can I get those? This box here is full of my key blueprints, in my opinion. And I have those available on my website, and you can find the link in the description below the video. The key issue, challenge, struggle, frustration, whatever you want to call it, of building nuclear power is always this. This poor little pond is just being drained for all the water there is. Apparently not actually, but look at how much it is. And I have 2 of these. The power consumption in the base, 2.4 gigawatts. Again, it's nothing significant. It's just kind of there. What I've also done is, that's actually a key attribute. I have a roboport pretty much covered. You can see how inadequate it is because of the issues that I don't have the tight fit. So there are some gaps here and there, and that sucks. But I do not have a lot of logistic spots. So this base, I have 454 for some reason. The logistic spots are not transporting high quantity items. They're only allowed to transport like really low quantity items like spent fuels, nuclear fuels, and stuff for this one. When I need to build some nuclear weapons, I just requested it here, but it's not really working. It's not a logistics base. The logistics robots are here to supply me with all the crap that I love to keep around in my inventory, but not anything else. This is very much a belt base, and I absolutely love that fact. This city block size allows for quite a lot of belts, and I have not run out of belts, but I have also kind of had to be a bit careful on trying to group them up. For example, one of the things that I found is that I usually make 2 lanes for plastic, and now I can see once you really get into late game, you just need 4 lanes, because basically each one of these down here consumes a full blue lane of plastic. So that's already 3, and then the remaining will go up to here. Whatever is that actually? Oh yeah, that's low density structures for the yellow science and low density structures for the rocket parts. So that's pretty much too much to handle. Right, so that's kind of the base. In terms of, let's look at the rail system. I did have an intention of going in from both sides, but that would actually complicate matters, because the way this train system works is that for these iron, you can see there's lots of circuits, but on the very short part here, each of these are called iron in as in inbound to the base, not into the train, into the base. That's why it's in, and therefore it's out of an outpost and into the inbound logistics. There, that covered that. Lots of people don't like it, but that's the way it is. Anyway, the idea is I have 3 locations here with iron, and they have 3 states. They can be closed, and they can be open and accepting if someone comes in, or they can be actually requesting, kind of. Basically what I have here is I've set a threshold that says when this content here is less than 35,000, then just bring in, and you can bring in a full train load. Just come in with 1. And that's for these, this is like 20, 30, and 35. So trains will come in here. You can see there are no trains here for the iron waiting to come in, and there are no trains waiting to go out. This is the buffer going in, this is the buffer going out. So if I can monitor if I have stacks here, that means I am able to mine the iron faster than I can consume it, and they are idling here so that they will come in. However, if I am, that's not actually true, but Here, if they're stuck here, that means they don't have anywhere to go. So this one's stuck. This basically says, you know, it goes here to refuel, and then it goes out if there's anywhere that it can go. Likewise here, we can see we have lots of copper just waiting to go in. They will be stopped here. And this is one of the things I've answered a million times in the comment section. I need to stop them here, which means I need change signals all the way to the inbound. Nope, here and here. Otherwise, they start stacking up. These trains you have here will start stacking up on this line and thereby block any through transport. But what it is that as soon as they get out, the next one will already start going in unless it's red. So this one is locked. It cannot receive anything. If you want to know more, you can look at my tutorial for Vanilla Train Network, or you can go to the Discord and ask Apollos. He's the one who invented this system, and it works really well. But there are some things that you must do. You must have a buffer for where the trains can park before going in. The way I've done on Outpost is first I built some random outposts, but then I came to a sort of a blueprint that I'm really happy about. Basically going in, have stackers here, a loading location also controlled with circuits, and then have a location where I can park an artillery train. And once I had this, you can see the hacks I did earlier, but once we got it, it's very simple. Just stamp this down, stamp it, stamp it, stamp it. Really cool. And I'm actually going to be continuing with that, just generally having a structure for how to build a base. And that's been very, very easy for us. And you can see here, we can keep an eye on with this one. We can see this one has 63,000. So this train is full, but it's just waiting for one of these to actually get into a requester mode. And then it will dispatch the train in here. Very, very awesome, very well functioning. And that means that I basically laid out the entire base in the beginning, and that's basically the work I have. So if I wanted to say, oh, I wanted more oil processing, well, sorry, this is my oil processing, this is my liquefaction, that's all there is to it. That also means that at a certain point, which is right now, it can't really be scaled up much further because we are pretty much hitting a collective bottleneck. This part here is really close to bottlenecking sometimes, this intersection. And of course this could fix it, but then it would have to like go copper in on one line, iron in on another line, to reroute the whole thing. We are starting to see some issues sometimes here. If I start taking, for example, emptying out all of these and just let it go absolutely crazy, we are seeing that it starts thinning a bit on the belts. Not really, but almost. And this one's just chugging along. So what I'm basically saying here is that this is almost at capacity. You can see here we take the last two belts of copper in, and if I wanted to scale up more rocket science, then I would have to scale up this. I would have to scale up more copper, but I'm already having 16 lanes of copper. So how do we scale up from 16 lanes of copper? It just doesn't really add up. And that's kind of the way all the way through, that there are some things that are, we've designed it for this scale, and now we've reached the scale, so expanding it doesn't really make a lot of sense. And that's why I'm going to wrap up this series. There are some details to it. The blueprints, as I mentioned, they will be available. Check the description below for a link to all the blueprints available being used. The map will be available to supporters of the channel. That is one of the few perks that I give to the people who so graciously choose to support me in my endeavor, and that is to be able to download the map. You can do that through the Discord, and I'll then be starting up a new series, and I really like to reveal what it is, but I'm just not absolutely sure. But I will give you just an indication, but it might be something completely different. What I really first had intended was try to use the mod, the hive mind, to see if I could switch to the biter side and attack my own base. Problem is, the hive mind mod, I spent a couple of hours on it, and it's just more of a gimmick than it is a real mod, and it would just be like grinding, and not really very fun, because you have to grind all the way up to behemoths and then do some critical strikes at some weak locations like the rails here, for example, switching this off, maybe wait for it to run out. trying to get in here, blow up the nuclear power plant, and once that's done, all the lasers shut down, you can start breaching it from the inside. So there's some really big techniques, but it would take a monstrous amount of time and not really be very compelling. If anyone wants to have a go at it, well, be my guest. So what I'm doing is starting a brand new series. I'm not going to do vanilla because this is vanilla. So I'm going to find some good mod pack, and the one that's been requested by me, a lot of people have requested I play Pyanodon, and I think it's complex for the sake of being complex, and so I'm not really particularly interested in that. But I'm really, right now I'm testing and looking into Factorio. If you don't know it, you can recommend that Tuplex has a series that just started on it, and I think it's close to, it's primarily vanilla, but it has some new and unique things, plus it's a lot slower. So I think it could be a lot of fun to do that, and I'm just looking for testing some things. So that's really my working thesis. There will probably be a couple of days without any Factorio videos or recorded videos on my channel, but I guess that's it. Look at production. That's been requested like numerous times over the last hour. I don't know, hour is probably not good. 10. These numbers are not impressive, I know, but it's not a mega base, so boo-hoo. See, yeah, I'm almost ashamed of this, but yeah, well, it is what it is. I'm really happy with the base. This is my best designed base to date. It did exactly what I wanted it to do. It was a design that was laid out clearly from the beginning, and at the end, once all is said and done, it actually turned out to be working really well with the power, the belts, the trains, everything just fit together really nicely. So I hope you have enjoyed this playthrough. It has been a ton of fun for me, and I'm really happy with the support that it has gotten here on YouTube. You know the drill. If you like it, hit the like button, share it with someone if you think that this is relevant. I hope that it's been an inspiration and hopefully also educational and maybe even entertaining for some. And for the rest of you who've been rating in the comment section, I hope you've at least had fun with that. I'm looking forward to see you in my next series. And also remember that I am streaming Factorio on Twitch at pretty much 3 times, but at least two to 3 times a week. So drop by, say hi, and just get the opportunity to yell at me in real time instead of just the comment sections a day later when I can't do anything about it. And with that, I'm going to wrap up this series. Thank you, everyone. Take care out there, and as always, stay effective.